The best community radio stations are those which have grown up from a community.
3D's got a mission to serve the music community of South Australia. That's always number one.
It's just changed my life so far, being part of 3D and having my own show.
It's family, it really is family.
Yeah.
The reason 3D radio started, and it was with great passion that a group of people got together in 1979 to form an association which would promote progressive music in South Australia, particularly Adelaide at the time, because that was what our reach was. And the passion with which that group started and the intention, it was a lot of musicians and people who wanted to hear local music in a world where it might surprise you, but there were very few radio stations and they played pop. The ones that were playing to younger audiences were pop music and pretty much governed by what the record companies wanted to release. And so if you're a young musician in Adelaide wanting to get involved in punk music or alternative music or whatever, there was no outlet. And there was no inlet either. There was not a place to hear it unless you had some other mechanism. And so this group of people met and decided to apply for the licences which were being released at that time, and they took their thoughts to Don Dunstan, who was convinced that it was a good idea, and he put money into it. And the excitement with which they then progressed, certainly I wasn't there at the time that they had the first broadcast, but the party is legendary for being something where people felt really strongly that they were at the beginning of something new, that feeling that you are part of something that has really got to be important.
Well, the very first night of broadcast was at a morgue or an undertaker, funeral directors, and that was what 3D had taken over to become a broadcaster back in 1979. And most recently, we've moved into beautiful new premises here at St Peter's, and our landlord is the Lord Payneham St Peter's Council, and they've done this place up beautifully for us. Along the way, we actually started with the name Triple M, and when the, whatever it is, network commercial odds wanted to use the call sign as they were using all over the rest of Australia, and that was the end of that. We've been very happy to be 3D ever since. 3D's got a mission to serve the music community of South Australia. That's always number one.
3D radio is genuinely important to the music world of South Australia, and it is the mechanism or the forum or the entity which should reflect local musicians and up-and-coming musicians and be their station. Sometimes that's been easier to achieve than others, but I think that is what it is. It is the station that should belong to local musicians, to hear their music played, for them to be part of it and to be contributing, but also to be often the very first place that their music gets heard. And it is something we often hear actually, where a musician will say the thrill that they get when they're driving along in their car and they hear their own music played, that thrill never leaves them. They never forget that moment when they first hear their music played. And I think it is our charter to be that avenue for people who are getting to be musicians.
Doing a radio show is a great way to find out about new bands and all the local talent that's been around over the years, and even now there's so many great bands that people should know about, and I think that's one of the strengths of Smash It Up, is that we're able to play those bands and get the music out there to people who may not have heard them before. The reason why I keep being involved in it, because I'm always discovering new bands that I've never heard of, and it's been a lot of fun.
I think community radio in general and 3D in particular is about freedom, and it's about sharing. And freedom that all our announcers have is that they play whatever music they want to, so you can trust their choice. There's no playlist. And sharing, yeah, we're not trying to get money from people or sell them soap powder, make money for ourselves. We're sharing stuff that's important to us.
That was, of course, Let's Go Fly a Kite from Mary Poppins. I felt that that was necessary on a day like today when we're actually finally getting some sun around here.
Radio tries really hard to have live performances occur at the station. Over the years we've had a couple of various shows who have done that, and it's about bringing in a local band and having them play on a particular night. And currently we're running a Wednesday night live music show. There's no limitations to which type of musical genre we'll be playing on any of these Wednesday nights. They can be all sorts, and we encourage everything.
Bringing musicians in for live performances, and more broadly just bringing them in for interviews and things like that, I think benefits everyone. It benefits the musicians, especially when we're focused on local up-and-coming bands, might not have had much experience with interviews and things like that. So I think community radio has an important role to play in that respect. In terms of live performance, it's great for everybody. Everybody wins. The bands get to not only perform, but also get an artifact out of that, the recording that we broadcast to air, and that's real and something that is theirs forever. And our listeners get to experience live performance as well. One thing that didn't occur to me at the start, but I learnt about it later, is a lot of listeners to this station aren't going out on the weekend and going to bands. For a lot of reasons, they might not be able to. And so for us to be able to get that atmosphere and vibe of live music into their lounge rooms, I think that's really important for listeners as well.
Also the concept of the live music show is about engaging our members to all join together and work as a team, build our internal kind of camaraderie, because we can be quite isolated. If you do your show, you come and go from the station, you don't necessarily meet others, you talk to the people either side of your show. Sometimes that could be it.
Yeah, and it builds up the skill of our members as well, because they're now learning live audio engineering skills that they would otherwise not have the opportunity to try. And so that's really important as well, from upskilling our members so they can go on either to do this as a career later on or whatever. They're learning new things as well, which is cool.
And that there is more to just coming in and putting in a CD and pushing a button.
There are some shows on 3D which are unique to 3D. I know that because when I talk about the Hoot, which is our live to air, we put 3 or 4 microphones out on a veranda in the park over the road from 3D every Monday evening, and people turn up and they bring their guitars and they sing songs, and other people turn up and bring something to eat and sit down on the grass and listen to it. And it's been going for 22 years.
Everybody loves you, so don't let them down.
And when I talk about that at, say, community broadcasting conferences, people are really fascinated by the idea of having something that is open to the public. And so it's one of our major shows which is very open to the Adelaide people who are interested in music and musicians. It goes every Monday night regardless of snow. We haven't actually had snow, but we would go even if we did.
It's X-Face on the Isthmus of Panama. Well, this Christmas.
Snow, rain, shine, Christmas night, New Year's night, doesn't matter. We still do a hoot. We have not missed one in 22 years. We had our big 21st birthday last year. And it is something when people come along and see it for the first time, they go, I've been around the world, I've never seen anything like this. So it's a wonderful community event.
Stay up all night, still nothing there.
The prison show is another example of a wonderful community link that radio provides. The community that it is mostly for, obviously other people listen to, but the people who are in prison are able to request a song to play and shout out to people who are their friends and relatives and lovers and whatever who are not in prison. And it's very important to that community, and I feel that that's one of the things that community radio can give its broader community is a show like the Prison Show.
So 3D Radio has been really focusing more recently on outside broadcasts and being part of the community and being seen out and about around town and supporting events and artists as they are, putting on their stuff. The outside broadcast provides another option for connecting with our listeners, our supporters, our audience, plus another connection with musicians, artists, venues, festivals, movements, have the background noise of all the sounds that are happening at a venue, at a festival, have the audience at the event come over and have a chat to us as the on-site radio station, and the opportunity to speak to many artists over a period of a couple of hours. Over the last couple of years, we've gone to the Blenheim Festival up in the Clare Valley, which is 100 k's away from here. It's the most isolated spot that we have been for an outside broadcast with regards that we're set up in a paddock. So it was quite challenging to start with, but we've kind of got that sort of sorted out now. To do an outside broadcast too it takes a whole team of people. So there's a lot of work that goes into each one. So these are all great, fun events that are occurring around town that we want to be a part of because we feel like that it's such a good fit with 3D Radio. Well, the Redcliffe Community Cup is an annual football game. We got involved straight away as it is a football game between local musicians and local media. And as it's grown, we've also connected with Channel 44, who now film the game as well, and using our commentators as their sound for the event.
It's an awful game of footy. It's like just awful enough to be entertaining though, so it's really fun to be involved with.
Depth Charge is a CD that comes out every year. It generally comes out about our radiothon, which is every August, and it showcases South Australian artists. And presently we're working on Depth Charge 18, and is made up of artists that pass our new releases every year. So it generally comes from our new release section of our library, and is a very important part of 3D's makeup.
And it's also a thank you to our subscribers who subscribe to the station. Our way of giving something back to the community as well.
Top 20 Plus One is a weekly show. It plays the top 20 plus one new releases that have come into the station.
3D Radio is unique in that we don't have playlists, we don't have songs on rotation. It's up for each announcer to decide the music they want to play. And so because of that, we get a lot of diversity, but we also want to showcase the music that 3D Radio announcers and listeners, hopefully, are really enjoying. So we play the 21 most played releases of the week. Every week, and it's great because it gets to showcase so much local music. The top 100 plus one is the most played new releases for the entire year. It comes from the top 20 plus one. Any release that has been played on 3D Radio is in for a chance. What's great about our top 100 plus one for the year, it ends up being roughly 70% of our charts, South Australian music, the most played music on 3D radio, which is really exciting. And it's a lot of fun.
And then we have the party.
It's a lot of fun. We invite all the bands that make it into the chart to come in and have a chat and talk about their music and have a bit of a party. So yeah, it's great to involve all the bands and musicians that are a part of what we play on 3D radio.
When I originally started 3D, I was a participant for Youth FM, and I never really heard of what community radio was. I didn't know what 3D was. I didn't know what commercial or public radio was. I had absolutely no clue at all. And I eventually, throughout the process of being a participant in Youth FM, I started to understand a little bit more better about what sort of 3D is and what sort of community radio is all about. And eventually started to develop my understanding, and I think it's just changed my life.
I was just cycling randomly through the radio in the car, and I heard this, I guess you could say, an unconventional song that I didn't even think was allowed to be played on air. And in that moment I knew that I wanted to be a part of this group. So I started in the Youth FM program not too many years ago, and that was more so of getting involved in the program that they have set up.
Youth FM originally is a program on Thursdays between 4 and 5 p.m. for young people between the ages of 15 and 25 to get that sort of hands-on experience in radio. I believe it originally started with a program called Rock and Roll High School. There's been so many people that have come through the Youth FM program, and they've not necessarily been here for the purpose of being on radio. They've been here for the purpose of building their confidence, their communication skills, being a bit more direct. And I think I've learnt those plus more by being in the Youth FM program. And I think my experiences through Youth FM have led me to the career path that I now have. So I think I wouldn't have studied journalism that I do now if it wasn't for Youth FM. I probably would be studying something completely different. So I think it's just changed my career path and the path of my life as well. So I think Youth FM has so much to offer young people. So if anyone's interested, they can always get involved as a young person here at 3D in that way.
With Youth FM, it gives the opportunity to youth to actually have a voice on radio, because I know there's a bit of a misconception that radio is only for older aged people, but that's not what we want to do. We want to make it an open place so everyone can have a dialogue about it. And with the Youth FM program shows, you don't know what they're going to be talking about every week, because it's up to the team members or the participants to actually design the show running for that week. And it's just a great way for people to get involved and to actually start in radio.
I think community broadcasting is important because it fills the gap, because most of the time in commercial radio or public radio, there tend to be the specialisation, the niches of certain areas, whether it's language, politics, certain types of music like we hear at 3D radio with local music. I think it fills the gap. I think at community stations there's that niche area that's being filled to serve a purpose in the community. I love it when I see stations and programs that are making sure that there's a need of the society that needs to be met, and they're doing it through their radio station, and that's really great. And so I think 3D radio does that by airing local music to society.
.3D is to 100% volunteer. It has its problems being entirely volunteer, but it is extremely economical. And considering that it's kind of a loose, anarchic way of running something, it doesn't work any worse than anywhere else I've been.
We have no paid staff, so we don't have a paid manager. And if you look at the Constitution, it's got the capacity for a board of management and then working groups, or what we call subcommittees, around certain areas. And that worked pretty well when you've got paid staff. And over the time when we have been operating for the last 22 or 23 years without any paid staff, it has become a much more flat structure. So in fact, sometimes our board of management is a staff meeting, because the work of managing and the work of the station is being done by the same people. So that has been the situation for the last probably 22 years. That has great advantages in some ways, because what it does mean is if you've got a skill and you see a niche that needs to be done, you can get in there and do as much as you like and put your own mould on it, and that has a freedom. You don't have somebody telling you how to do it and what to do, and that can be very rewarding because you can see the results of what you're doing and you have the freedom to express yourself. There are some disadvantages, and that is if no one sees the niche, it tends not to get done.
The idea of a community organisation that is run not on commercial bases means that it's media that you can trust, which is a rare thing as well. People know that the music that we're playing here is being played because that person who's on the air at the moment has chosen to do it because they love it or because they think it's interesting. And it sets up a relationship with the individual, because basically radio is listened to by individuals in their car, in their lounge rooms, in their bedrooms, in their sheds, and it's a one-on-one kind of conversation. And without trust, it's nothing.
I think community radio is important because it is genuinely a voice that would not otherwise get heard. It's not just, our voice is about music, but the best community radio stations are those which have grown up from a community. I know that sounds really like a cliche or corny, but if you've got a community who feels very, I want to say passionate again, but that they need a voice to connect to their community and the community connect with one another, that is when the best community radio stations start and are maintained. So often it's a geographical community, often it's an ethnic one or an Indigenous one or a religious one, but if you've got that kind of community that is the one that you're serving and the one which gets involved with you, that is the best manifestation of a community radio station. And that is important because those kinds of voices don't get heard unless we have that. And the freedom to really express what that community is on about this is the only outlet that can happen. Ours happens to be music, which is great, but it is important to all of those others as well. There are many, many significant moments, but I think one of the ones that we can be most proud of is our induction into the South Australian Music Hall of Fame, which was a couple of years ago now. And that was it's a wonderful honour to be in that. We would be in the first media agency.
I think something that makes me keep coming back to 3D radio every week is the chance to make sure that the unheard music that I love so much, all the things that I love most about music and the things that are happening in my life, being able to share that with the world and making sure that people who are listening, that I can provide a little bit more positivity, a little bit more light into their day if it's not been so great. I think that's probably one of the most positive things.
My favourite part about being involved with 3D is having the hands-on experience, and actually learning from that as well. Being able to connect microphones up when we do a live show, and then also being able to plan my own radio show. I just like the autonomy to it, as well as the teamwork aspect, what keeps the station alive, and it feels special to be a part of that.
The best thing for me about being on the radio is I get to impose my personal taste and perspectives on the general community for a couple of hours a week, and share my. But no, it's a terrific opportunity to collect your thoughts and to curate some music, get some ideas together, share films that I think are really worth seeing and films that are really worth avoiding. That's what I like most about it. I do get a great charge out of doing a decent show.
My favourite parts of being involved with 3D radio are when we're out in the world. Being outside in the community, being involved with local events and having people come to us, or us being out with them, is the most fun aspects, because you get to interact with listeners and find out that, hey, people are listening and people really do love what we're doing.
My favourite part of being involved with 3D is that connection and sense of belonging, and you make new friends, loads of new friends.
And a lot of friendships have come out of it too. And people are just wonderful here, and it's family. It really is family. It's my second family. It has been for years. And as I said, if 3D closed tomorrow, I don't know what I'd do. It's just a great organisation to be involved with, and people have made me so welcome here, and I never take that for granted, never.
Having musicians around you all the time as your, your key central friendship group is such a gift, because every time you have a birthday party, shifting house, whatever, everybody comes along and they bring their guitars and their whatever, and so that your life is filled with music in a completely different way from what it was when you were just listening to music on your record player. It's a life that is a wonderful gift.